You're listening to the Intentional Minds podcast, the space where we uncover the stories, strategies, and mindsets behind extraordinary individuals who live with purpose and achieve greatness. I'm your host, Divine Marizu, and for our very first episode, I couldn't be more excited to introduce someone truly remarkable, Precious Okon. Precious is the definition of excellence and resilience. She graduated as valedictorian from Nile University of Nigeria with a perfect 5.0 CGPA in Petroleum and Gas Engineering. An incredible feat. But her journey isn't just about academic brilliance. In today's conversation, Precious opens up about the intense sacrifices and struggles behind her success. We dive into how she turned those experiences into the foundation for Maximising Chronos, her company that has already empowered dozens of students and professionals to take control of their time and achieve their goals. We also explore the deeper questions. What truly drives success? And why doesn't affluence always guarantee it? We discuss how faith plays a critical role in Precious' life, helping us stay grounded and intentional. Precious shares the journey that led her to earning a scholarship at Imperial College London for her master's in geoengineering and the lessons she's learned about productivity, purpose, and the power of belief. This conversation is raw, heartfelt, and inspiring, an incredible start to a journey of exploring what it means to live intentionally. Welcome to the Intentional Mind podcast. Hi, Precious. Welcome to the Intentional Mind podcast. How are you doing today?
Hello, Divine. I'm very well. I'm glad to be here on Intentional Mind Podcast.
Amazing. I keep saying this because no matter the time, your energy just shows off, right? I don't know how you're able to do it. Still come up with a smile despite what happens. How does this work? Really, I'm genuinely curious to know.
I think um, the energy, the joy, it's an offshoot of something from within. So,
Hmm.
like, because the source isn't based on occurrences outside, so that explains why it can't just be doused by anything going on.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that kind of like encapsulates what it is we are talking about, which is intentional minds, which involves individuals who take life very actively. I always say take life by the horn. And that doesn't come from extrinsic, it often comes from within. And that is what you're doing. Like your joy stems from it. And I'm sure every other aspect of your life which you're going to delve into today stems from that. And we're truly excited to like uncover your journey. And one of the best ways I always think to start a conversation is like from very early on in the life, right? From the childhood. And I want to go back to your childhood. I pointed 9, 10 years. Please walk us through how that Precious was like. And if you have this energy from within, then because then we can now start pinpointing where did this energy come out from.
Okay. Well, I guess I've actually always been a smiler, so that's good. But then I think it got better, like a stronger consciousness of it definitely came up much later in life, like when I got to know the gospel and understand the source of joy. We'll talk about that probably later on.
Yeah.
But to your actual question about me being 9 or 10, as at 9, I was in what, primary 5, primary 4, or
Yeah.
yeah, primary 4, because that collecting awards and all. Yeah, that has been good. But in addition to that, there had always just been that sense of independence. Like my parents would always talk about that. The fact that I just had this tendency to be clear on what I wanted and go
Yeah.
for it. And also just be independent as well. So for context, I'm the last child of 6 children,
Oh.
and my siblings had gone to secondary school at that time. So I was the only one at home. And yeah, like 9, 10. So primary 4, primary 5, I was the only one at home. And rather than my parents having to be worried that they were leaving a young child alone at home, they could actually be calm and know that they'll come back and I'll still be there to open the gates for them. I wouldn't have slept off leaving them unattended to. I wouldn't like I didn't need that excess care to have to be um like to survive. Like I was always just that type of person. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess God is really just working over time.
That's amazing. That's incredible. So it's interesting to know that from very young in life, you're someone who has been driven academic excellence, the awards you got. That's really incredible. And that's kind of like one of the things that when someone think of Precious, they like, she's the academic achiever, right? Excellence. And it makes me wonder, because you mentioned your parents, what role did they have in like impacting that excellence to you, most especially academically?
Mm. Well, yeah, I mean, my parents have always been the ones to, you know, push you to want to do well at school,
Yeah.
especially when it came to academics, because since it wasn't exactly something that they had full access to in their time, it became a major thing for them to have their kids experience that as well. And so they put in a lot of work, spending the money to send us to the best schools that their money could afford. And by the time you look at everything that was going on at home, it only made sense to make the investment in your life count. And of course, they were always very excited. I think it just made me so excited when I would see them proud about my achievements. And I think that was also a further propeller for me. So,
I got emotional for a second, and I'll tell you why. You mentioned that
no,
parents tend to like give their kids most of the times something that they do not often have. And I've also experienced this as well, and I'm sure a lot of people have also experienced this because it's like, why do your parents like sacrifice so much to give you the best of life? And then when you see the effort they put into it, it just makes you want to make it count. And that's something that a lot of people really need to like take cognizance about. I really appreciate that parents actually put so much. Now, there are some who might have it in excess, right? So like, and then they don't tend to like value that. And I've always wondered like, why is that the case? Why is it that people who say are from very, very affluent home and then they have literally all resources to make them succeed, but yet you see them not like meeting up to expectation? Like, if you're to think about that for a second, what would you say is the reason why we see things like this?
I mean, I don't know if I'm exactly in the best position to give the best response to that. But before I say anything on that, I'll just speak to like the balance of it. The fact
Yeah.
that whilst there definitely is the general thing where more often than not you would see people that have more access to resources not actually making the most of them,
Yeah.
there are still those who are from such homes and still do really well. I still have, like, I know some people personally from school that came from very affluent homes and they still worked as hard as I did or even harder than I did at the school still,
Yeah.
just to ensure that there's that balance first off. But in addition, just to speak to the other part of the population, I think it's a perception of value. Um, if you don't, because I feel like there's only so much your parents can do. Because even for people that don't have, we still have the people that end up wasting the resources that were provided for them, despite the fact that they knew that their parents were sacrificing.
Yeah.
So I think it all goes back to the individual. You being able to see that this is something that I care about and I actually want to invest my emotions. I want to invest my time, my blood, my sweat, my tears into because I actually care about it. And I think so. So this is the thing, and this is a general principle that drives me. Like
Yeah.
a strong why, there has to be a strong why behind anything that you get involved with. So if that why isn't established, then you're going to see that when more difficult times come, you won't be able to give it so much anymore. So I think it really just boils down to a strong why and a proper perception of value, because that's what's going to drive you and keep you going. So, yeah.
Very well answered. That was a PhD answer right there. And I think that is also it. Because when I also think about it, there has to be an underlying why. Like, why are you doing it? And the way you can think about the why, you begin with the end in mind. It then helps you to see or to put in that what they're expected to get there. But most of people just like are passive observers in life. And that's why they're not really striving to get anything in life. They just feel like everything will just be there. And that I think that's one of the key differences between these two group of people. And thanks for creating that balance because yeah, we still have people who still have this and still put in work, but then there's been that clarity of why. And that is something our listeners will really have to like take home when they're listening this. Is like, what is your why? Like what is that thing that is really pushing you? Because if you can truly identify it, it means that anything you're doing henceforth will be in alignment with that your why. And then you will just have this like very good focus. I was reading a post you posted some days ago, and it just got me thinking, and I'm sure you know which one that is. And that is when you pointed about how people say you're a deep sleeper, and then you never really felt that was the case. And that was when you reflect on it, it was because you walked and walked and walked to the point that it was like you didn't have enough time to sleep and you were burnt out. And that started a journey for you of truly introspecting like, why am I doing all this? Is there not a better way of doing it? And then I believe that's when you research more about productivity, which is your niche now, which I'm truly excited to talk about that. Walk us through what that moment was like and what changed from that point moving forward.
All right. Yeah, I mean, that post because it's something that is really dear to my heart. Because for the longest, I really just fell into that trap of, oh my God, I'm working so hard. Like, I want to be someone. I want to be this. I want to be
Yeah.
that. And it only makes sense that I'm not sleeping well. It only makes sense that I'm not doing this and that. In the end, when I get the results, I'll be fine. But the first thing that started bringing me back, aside that whole traumatic experience,
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
actually God. So the post talked about the fact that I remember I was standing at the food truck that day, and I was just overwhelmed. This was what 300 level or so, and there was just so much going on. I was involved in a lot of activities. At 300 or 400 level, and I felt so burnt out. I was at the cafeteria at the food truck trying to order, and I just started crying.
No.
I just started crying. My friend was beside me, and then I told, it's like I don't know, my chest feels tight, and I wasn't sick. Like I
Wow.
wasn't physically sick. I was just exhausted. Just felt like I was doing too much. I was being talked in so many directions, and I still needed to meet up to the standards in everything I was doing. So my friend just said, "Okay, you know what? Just go to the hostel. I'll bring the food for you." So she got the food for me. And then so I was just like, I was at home. I was crying. I was like, "What is this?" So then I just started. I started trying to see, okay, what can I do? What do I need to drop? So I wrote down everything that I was involved in at the time. I started looking at which one I would put away. What would I not be involved in anymore? So that was just a quick fix that I came up with at the
Yeah.
time. And then scheduling then came into the picture. So being able to say, okay, I'm going to do this at this time, do this at this time.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like a full blown schedule like the way I have it now
Yeah.
with my calendar and everything. That time I just used to use reminders. And just, oh, I have this to do, so I'll do it at this time. I have this to do, so I'll do it at this time. And then later on, post uni, I got into this new circle of friends, my closer circle of friends,
Yeah.
and this was where like God was now further emphasizing what was already going on. So
Yeah.
we were praying, or we would be praying, because it wasn't only once that God warned me about this. We'll be praying, and then like they'll get words like, "Oh, you need to rest. Oh, you need to sleep well." I remember at the time I would show my friends my sleep count from my phone. and my average sleep for the week could be 2 hours or
Wow.
3 hours
Wow.
or something like that. And it didn't make sense to anybody because why are you sleeping 2 hours or 3 hours? You're not even in school. It's not like it's exam period. I just wasn't able to sleep properly. I remember there was a time even in school, I used to have migraines. Like I'll turn off the lights and then like I'll just be holding my head because I couldn't deal with the lights in the night. It was crazy.
Oh my god.
So I said, no, I can't. This can't be life. I can't continue like
Oh
this.
my god.
And considering the fact that you know, of course, God was dragging me about it as well. I just knew that I really had to work on it as well. Now, like, I'm averaging like 5 hours, 6 hours. Like, my friends are so proud of me because, wow. And I know, okay, 5, 6 hours is still not recommended. Recommended is 7, I think. But, I
Seven,
mean,
eight, yeah.
five is phenomenal for me. So,
Let's
yeah.
let's touch on that for a moment because I'm in the medical field and when you talk about sleep, I know like how it impacts your body functioning, most especially your brain. And as a student, you need to sleep, right? You're still developing. But then it's like you work hard, but I don't think people truly understand like how hard you are working. So like paint that picture for like a second, like what was the work ethic like? Truly paint it for us.
Okay. Okay. So, let's look at it like this. So, let's use maybe my 500 level, or let's use 400 level.
Okay.
So in 400 level, I was a student, of course, one. Two, I was the president of the Society of Petroleum Engineers,
Congrats,
my
amazing.
university's chapter. Three, I was the president of the fellowship.
Wow.
Four, at that time, I was still serving in the choir. Five, I still had to be a present friend for my friends. So we used to hang out a lot as well. So there is
Wow.
that. Um, I think there's a few other things I can't recall. Oh, yes, I was a student ambassador. So they were trying to introduce this thing within school where there were student ambassadors. So I used to help with stuff. So we shooting videos at school. So I need to show up for those video shoots and all. Or if there's an event at school, I'll also show up and maybe volunteer my time and the like. So, I mean, and these are just the ones I can remember
I'm
at the
sure
moment,
like
right?
any student like me who's
So,
listening to this will be like, what am I doing with my life? God, I want to be a ball, I don't want to be a mechanic. Because what is this? You were just mentioning all of this. I'm like, oh my god. But please carry on.
and I mean, in addition to all of this, I mean, I'm a Christian, so I still need to have an active devotional
Yeah.
life. So while being president, where I'm overseeing the fellowship, I also need to ensure that my devotion is on track. So I need to make sure I was praying, I need to make sure I was reading my Bible, listening to sermons. So it was like a lot. Of course, Christian devotion is not work, but like, it's still something that took from time, so it's still time that went through it. So wake up, I think I used to get up at like 4 or 5 at the time. And then classes were by 9. So between 4 and 9, I would have done like a million other things because I needed to ensure that I had done some planning for this. So I used to have meetings for the different societies. So I need to plan ahead to be sure that by the time I'm going for that meeting, I'm prepared for that meeting and I have something tangible to say to the people. And I'm not just showing up
Oh
as a
my
leader
god.
because I'm the leader of something. So all of that, like, so these were just the things I was involved in, and it really just took a lot from me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't regret doing those things because because I think one thing about me is I'm very intentional about the things I get involved in.
Yeah.
So I only get involved in things that I care about.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm able to work hard at them because I care about them. If I didn't, you would see it. You would see it from the onset in how I approach it because my mind is not there. Right. So unless God leads me to do something, or personally I just see that I'm drawn to something, I'm more often than not that's still like a leading, right? I don't get involved in them. So
Oh,
yeah. So
Interesting.
I always work hard at the things that I get involved in.
Interesting. That's an insane amount of work, and it makes me wonder because we've talked about the intrinsic motivation, which was your why, and that motivated you to do all of this. But for some reason, I just feel like there had to be an extrinsic factor to this, or an external pressure on you. Don't tell me all of this is coming from within, because if it's coming from within, what are we doing then? Was it all internal?
Okay, I mean, well, I mean, a good part of it could have been, was internal, but yeah, they definitely were the external parts of things because there is the general pressure of being a high flyer.
Okay.
So everyone is like, "Ooh," like this. So of course, no one is outrightly coming to say, "Oh, Precious, hope you're performing well." But on your own, like you're thinking, there's an expectation. At this point, I was in my fourth year, so and I had been on the 5.0 from the beginning. So it's like
You have to maintain that standard. That
it,
standard has to be
there's always that
maintained.
pressure to always just perform.
Yeah, that's
So
amazing.
of course, there are some things I think I may have done out of obligation.
Okay.
Like maybe you just respect some people and then you just want to show up in that regard. So I think there was that as well. So, and
Yeah.
you would usually see the difference when it's something you're doing out of obligation and something that you outrightly care about. So that's the thing. In doing things of from place of obligation, because I care about the person, that's
Yeah.
why I'm doing the thing for the person. So
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
yeah.
interesting. That's interesting. I believe there's anything anybody can take away from this part that we've just talked about is that most of the time when you're young, there has to be a point where you really work hard. Like you put your heart cut into something. Because one thing I've come to realize is that as we're really young, we really do not have anything to show, let's say, our future employers or like the world what we've done. Aside, say, for example, an education, right? Because that's like a track record of you consistently doing something, working hard at that thing. And that can determine like, oh, this is the kind of person who like works hard at it. And that is one of the things I always say to people who are always like, school is scam. Like it's not really scam genuinely if you really think about it. Because at the end of the day, it's a proof of work. It's a proof that you've been disciplined for a very long amount of time. Even days whereby you didn't want to do it, guess what? You still did it. And that work ethic is just going to carry on into anything that you're doing in life. So it's like just put in the work. So if there's anything that you're currently doing right now, please work hard at it. But then, which is where I want to get into the role here, because you realize that there's a smarter way to work. And I think that's where the term productivity will stem from. And you're the productivity queen. I put that queen specifically. I'm not going to call you the coach now. You're the productivity queen because trust me, I watch a lot of like productivity YouTubers. One common, I'm sure your family is like Ali Abdal, who like went from this doctor to now ex-doctor of productivity. I call him the king, you're the queen. So please, what is productivity to you? How do you define it?
Okay, so for me, I feel like productivity is doing things that are fulfilling to you. Like that's really what I see productivity as. I believe productivity comes from the place of purpose. That's what I believe. So it's a thing of fulfillment first, before anything else. And what drives this ideology for me is actually my faith. So for me as a believer, I see that my purpose is to know Christ and to make him known. And in the words of Apostle Emmanuel Aaron, purpose is that one thing for which you created and at which you must succeed. Otherwise, anything else you succeed at won't count.
Yeah.
So, going by that logic, right, you can apply it to productivity as well. If I'm able to do the most important things first, it's going to fail me to be able to do the other things that don't really matter like that. And that's where productivity really stems from. So, for example, let me paint a picture so that it's a bit clearer.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt so busy on a day, like you were doing so many things, you just felt like I'm busy, I'm doing things. Like if you check, Like you didn't have time for anybody. You probably even took up a phone that actively cared about. Like you were probably just answering other people's calls. So maybe, oh, my friend is doing this. Oh, this is happening. Oh, this is happening. Oh, please, could you do this for me or something like that? You're just doing things everywhere, but nothing is really coming from the place of like this is something I'm actively interested. Maybe a personal goal I'm working towards, or something like that. By the time you look back at that day, it can just look like the day wasted. But were you just sitting down, you pressing your phone? No. You were doing things, but they weren't things that really mattered to you, right? So, yeah, I believe that productivity really comes from a place of fulfillment where you're doing things that you really love and care about. And that's why when it comes to productivity, I believe first that you have to make room for the things that you care about, and then you can begin to put anything else. So, yeah.
How are you able to give such perfect answers? Tell me the secret. But I could just feel this fire inside of me as you were just explaining it about purpose, and it was just so on point, and I could really resonate with that, and that makes me wonder because over time you tend to hear two words which I don't know how they came together, but that is toxic productivity, and I'm sure you've come across that. What is toxic productivity? And in the case whereby, because then again, one of the arguments is that for people who work really hard, who sacrifice time with friends, family, like they're just so fully dedicated to, say, as a student, like your books. That is the only thing, Trust me, like, because I've seen individuals like this, and it's like, work, like, book, 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 book. Anything you're telling me, no more, right? And we are like, this is toxic productivity. Yeah. So, like, what do you say as toxic productivity? And the way do we draw that fine line between someone who is really productive and when does it get toxic, you could say? Or is there anything like toxic? Yeah. Just your thoughts on that.
I mean, yeah, I may not use the term personally, but I mean, based on what has been defined as subjective or what people would look at or think about when it comes to where like you're just focused on the work and you don't care about anything else. That's
Yeah.
not very good, right? So yeah, I guess that's toxic productivity. But like, I believe that there are things that matter more in life than just work,
Yeah.
and you have to be able to make room for those things. So I mean, so there were times that, especially like in school, I would usually just like focus on school at some point. Like there were
Yeah.
times like that, but that wasn't my entire thing. Like I still had things I cared about, like volunteering with SPE or being at the fellowship. So I made room for those things. And I think what helps to draw that line is proper prioritization. So you can't talk about productivity without talking about prioritization. You have to be able to delineate like what is the most important thing for me right now. So, for example, as a student in school, to be fair, your most important thing at that time is actually your books, your
Yeah.
academics, doing well in school. But with that, let's say it's taking like 60, 50% or 70%, but there has to be room for everything else. Like you have to be able to create room for the other things that you care about in some way. But every other thing should be also be able to understand that at this time there is what is most important. So and you, the person, has to be able to make it clear to every other thing that I've chosen that this is my highest priority at this time. And oh, sometimes what helps you do that is just carrying other people along, like being able to let them know that, okay, this is what's going on in this time. And then if you can create time for later for them. So, for like with my friends, there's some of my friends that I have scheduled call blocks with. So like, because now I'm a student, I'm doing my masters. So I have scheduled call
Yeah.
blocks with them. Everybody knows that I'm a student in school. So you're not going to beat me for not calling you every day or every hour or something like that. But I've created a structure, a system where I get to talk to you once a week. I get to talk to you once every 2 weeks. I get to pray with you every month. I have a friend that we have a bi-monthly check-in call, and that's okay. You
And
understand?
that's
Like you just know that this is something. This is what is going on at the moment, and it's demanding a lot of my time.
yeah.
Right. So there just has to be that balance, and in informing everyone around you, they are carried
Yeah.
along, and if they love you, which the people that you should be worried about are people that love you, they would understand and they would also accommodate that. So yeah.
Yeah. That's lovely. I loved how your social life is also a priority for you. So you do not like sacrifice that at the expense of something. And that's really quite good. And you see why it's so fit in this title of this podcast, Intentional Mind Podcast. Because guess what? You're intentional about the people in your life. Because if we're not intentional about these things, guess what life will do to them? To throw it away. And that's why I loved how you like block out time to make sure that you catch up with the people who you truly care about. And that's so fundamental because in as much as we are striving for these goals, ambitions to life it's uncertain. Like it could go at any moment, genuinely speaking. And it's like we need to appreciate each and every day. And when we do that, it's really like spending time with people we care most about. So, like blocking time to speak with friends, it's something that you've not really thought about. You should do it. And I'm talking to people who are like listening to this podcast, right? Because it's so vital. It's so important that we make our time to speak to people that we really love. These are two important things I want to talk to you about because you've accomplished so much. Like you graduated
Yeah.
with a really high grade, a perfect CGPA. You don't see that every day. And that's huge. Please, we need to like clap for that huge achievement. And right now, you've begun on a very
Thank you.
amazing achievement again. That is doing your master's. Should I say university or should you? Please. What institution are you right now? Let me give you the honors to do that, please. And guys, wait for it.
All right. I'm at Imperial College London.
Woo! Amazing. Amazing. Well, guys, it's also interesting because you shared a story about how this all came to be about, and that's inspiring. And I want you to like tell people about that, like what that journey was like.
Okay. Um, it's a very interesting journey to be fair. Like, and the fact that I even shared it is something really out of my regulars. Divine knows this. Divine is just dragging me about this. But yeah, um,
Amazing.
yeah. So when I graduated from school, I mean, generally everyone would be like, "Oh yeah, go do a masters and
Yeah.
all," but like, I didn't just want to do a masters for the sake of doing a masters. I wanted to do it, purposefully. At least let me be sure that what I'm doing, I really care about it.
Yeah.
So, um, I mean, of course, God's always like 10 steps ahead. Sorry, that's even an underestimation. But hey, he then I'm praying with my friend,
Yeah.
and then he drops a word in my friend's heart that I'll be going for my masters in a UK university. So as at that time, I had started searching for schools. So I was looking at different countries. So when that word came that it was going to be UK,
Yeah.
I then started looking at UK universities. Then we were praying later on. I hadn't even told him anything like about schools I was now even looking at, like the specific schools I was then looking at. And then he's like, "Oh, I see you, UK University, Imperial College London." I see. Okay, okay. No, let me see wrongly. He says, the first one was um, getting into a top school on my first try. That was the
Wow.
first word, and then the second word was the UK University Imperial College London. Yeah. So I then, so based on that word, I didn't apply to any other school
Just
because
wait
I was
for
like,
that
I
one.
got it. So that's the end. I don't need to stress myself again.
Wow.
So I just school other than Imperial. So this was 2022 ending. So I was like, okay, yeah, no matter what now, I'll go to school 2023. Should be God said that I'll go to school. I didn't know that that was not really how it was going to pan out. So, because I mean, I tried to look for scholarships now. Okay, which one like how will I
Yeah.
go? Because I knew that it wasn't my parents that were going to fund it. Because like long ago, I remember like in secondary school, because I bought a scholarship to go to university. So I
Yeah.
was like, my parents are not going to spend money on schooling for me anymore. So that's what I was saying. So when this master's thing came up, I was like, my parents are going to spend any money on my
Yeah.
schooling again. So I had to look for scholarships. I started searching. I applied for a number that year. I applied for like three or four that year. I really tried my best.
Wow.
And then I got
Amazing.
rejections for all of them.
Wow.
I had never been that rejected in my life
Wow.
before.
Did they
It
give a
was so
reason?
weird because it was like, how does Precious? Yeah, so I mean, for the first one, that one, I believe my essays, they were not great. I thought they were great too. When I was writing them, I was so proud of myself. But by the next year, when I wrote essays again and I looked back at that one I wrote, I said I did not try. I did not try. So,
It's good.
yeah. Then the other one was a government scholarship. So it required that I had NYSC and I wasn't done with mine at the time.
Yeah.
So I couldn't proceed to the next stage. The other one was won by the university. That one was a master's and PhD
Package.
scholarship. So if you do the MSc, then you go on to do the PhD. So I
Interesting.
was like, okay, Sha, I think that one is not done now because apparently PhD is not really part of the plan. Then,
Yeah.
um, what was the other one? There was one other one. Okay, that one, the last one, I think we had to write an exam. I wrote the exam, I
Yeah.
passed, I got invited to the interview,
Wow.
but it turns out that the for that year, they were only sponsoring people that were going to school in January, and my school was resuming in September, and so I was out of the picture. So I just continued my work. I
And
was
then,
working at the time, so I just continued working. I said,
just as a side question, for someone who I don't think you faced any level of rejection or failure like that, right? And receiving four at once, like what was going through your mind at that point, and what did you learn from it?
it was a lot. I said, I learned that nobody above breakfast.
They will serve it to you straight up. Oh my.
I learned that nobody above. So I just
Yeah.
said, wow, okay, noted. But then at the same, as much as I got those rejections, there was also just a knowing in my heart that
Yeah.
this thing is going to happen regardless because the intentionality around all of the words that had come,
Yeah.
I was like, no, 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 this, it just has to start. So
Yeah.
during this period now, like the 1 hour, I feel 1 hour, 1 year break where I was working and, trying to wait for the next stage, many that's where like different thoughts now begin to come. So
Yeah.
people are like, "Oh, I think this is a better option for you. This is what you should be involved in. You should try to go for this one. Try to go to this school." I remember there was one scholarship I was trying to apply for at the time, and they were sponsoring to particular schools, my school
Okay.
inclusive, but there was another school. So my dad was like, "Oh, yeah, apply to that school." So so that you can get that scholarship to go to that school. I was like, oh no. Then like there was now like a lot of pressure at that time.
Yeah.
So I now filled in the application. It was very haphazard. Like you just know that I did it without intentionality. I guess what? I still got the admission.
Wow.
So I was just like, oh god.
Interesting.
But then I, so when that admission came, it was like, hey, and you see, God has opened the door. I said, that's not the door God opened. Don't do me what I want. Yeah, but like I remember that time, like I was really even getting some people were even like low-key scolding me like, wow,
Yeah.
am I wasting my time? And all that. It really just felt like a loss.
No.
But then I said, God, Shivi, you sent me. Let's do this thing, let me know. And I mean, in the end, like this came through,
Yeah.
and I got so when those rejections came, I had to defer my offer from my
The other
school
one.
to the
Yeah.
next year. So then I now got scholarships, and that's how I then came in here. So
That's
that
wow.
was it.
That's really inspiring. I mean, you went against all odds. I mean, your family who are pressuring you to take this opportunity that has come. And also a lesson, right? So many a times our family, friends might want what is best for us. But then generally, it's only you and God that knows what's actually best for you. And it takes a lot of like courage to like wait on it and patience to actually wait for the right door to open. So it's like don't be too much in a hurry and just like allow him to like plot what he's really plotting. And as we gradually come to the end of this conversation, I've been waiting to ask you
Yeah,
this.
and
And
I just want to say something.
yeah,
I mean, of course, like sometimes people might like they could be pointers, like they could help you see stuff like maybe you're not seeing, and it's okay. But I think when you're very sure that there's a particular thing that God will have you do, just run with it and try to, like I said, carry them along as well. So, like I remember, I think I told them that God told me this thing. I trust Him.
yeah,
So just so that you're not just looking rebellious, like you don't listen to anybody. Just try to carry them along and show them that there's a reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm not just doing what I'm doing because I don't have sense. You get and yeah, it just helps. But yeah,
yeah. Communicate very effectively. Thanks for pointing that out. Very timely. And I was also going to ask you something along that lines, is because I was waiting to ask you this, and anybody who's listening to this will just know how fundamental it is, and that is your relationship with your heavenly Father, right? That's no secret. It's everywhere. Whenever they see Precious Okon, it's like they must see that side of you, and it's like, why? Why is that so fundamental? Like, why should anybody have a good relationship with God?
okay. Thank you. Thank you for asking that question. That's such a good question. The thing is, if you believe that it's in God that you live, move, and have your being, then it only makes sense that you allow Him to direct everything that you like. If you truly see Him as source, He's going to show in everything that you do. And if you say that He's your source, like it means you draw everything from Him, you take from Him, you do all things from Him. So it just has to show. And I mean, I've seen how being with Him has radically transformed my life. Like both on a personal level and even like for people around me and like so I'm just like it's more or less the wisest decision. And it's not even just about the things that you can get from him, because that's another extreme where you now only want to seek him for things that he can give,
Yeah.
seeking him for the bread that he gives and not for the bread that he is.
Hmm.
You want it to be
Hmm.
clear that he is Lord, he is the person, right? He's almighty, he knows best. So, I mean, you realize that first off, you were dead outside of you, and now by believing the gospel you become saved. So now if you see his life, if his life is what is working inside of you, then just allow him to lead and direct everything else. So that is so it is a wise investment. That's the easiest way I can put it.
Odd.
It's a wise investment. Like
Odd.
the song says, if I give God my lifetime, he'll take care of it. So when you just leave it for him,
Yeah.
and, and there's this interesting thing that I've observed. Like God really has this disposition to want to show off children. And once you just drop yourself there for him to do what he wants,
He will come
you
true. He will deliver.
you will have fun. Like you will be the one that will be saying, Lord, I think it's a bit too much. And he's like, we've not even started. Chicken. Like there's so many things that I'm doing now that are 1 million yards away from my comfort zone. What do you mean I'm running a business? What do you mean I'm creating content?
Yeah.
What do you get? Like he's dragging me out of comfort, and I'm just like, okay, well, no
I'm
problem.
gonna play around.
Maybe I said you should use me. I'm here.
And then at the end, it's like it's for
So
your own
like
good.
that's just
Yeah, that's really
do you
good.
get
That's really
do you
powerful.
get because you ask me in the end. You ask me in the end.
Really, really.
So
And then,
I think it's a wise decision
yeah,
to live for him.
genuinely.
I
And
think it's
then,
wise.
one question I'll ask in follow up to that is that, yes, there's a balance because today, as young people, there are a lot of young people who are doing what you just described. But still yet, there are still others who are not doing what you just described, like having that relationship. And they seem to be on the other end of the spectrum. And it's like, so you're one person and then you're now surrounded by some of these people. How do you resist, well, let's say the pressure to like fit into like their ideals, like their lifestyle? Because there's a whole lot of pressure to do that and like stand
Okay.
alone.
Yeah. I think all of that stems from the place of a concept I learned at church called God feelings. So God esteem, essentially. So when you understand identity, that it comes first from Him. So remember when we spoke earlier, we talked about things that were intrinsic,
Yeah.
coming from within you. So when you understand that your esteem doesn't come from anything else, there's no validation from others that is your true driving factor, then that transforms your approach to everything else. So when you are um, going about the things, especially when you know that God said you should do something, not that you're just doing it because you want to do it. When you know that God said you should do something, you run after it. You go like no man's business because He sent you, right? And
Yeah.
that's more than enough. When you know that God's the one that is backing you up, I think it gives a different level of confidence to go about stuff because you know that like I'm not alone. You have me backing. So you don't have to fit into the world's definitions of stuff for you to, you know, be good or be great or be successful. Who really defines success? Like what is success outside of God,
Do you
right?
understand?
So I just think of it as in the end, like he's the one I'm going to give account to. So and more recently, in fact, I was reading the book of Luke, and it's like, and there was something where they were like, "Oh, if you fear those who can kill the body, that's one thing, but then fear the person who can kill the body and kill the soul and
So,
send the soul
yeah.
to." So, I mean, there's only so much. Like these people can only kill the
Yeah.
flesh, but then
There's something more
there's
than
more that he
deeper.
can do. So, I guess it's someone greater to be afraid of.
Yeah. And in 1 minute, if you could, no, really, in 1 minute now, if you could say someone who's listening to this and is trying to like rekindle a relationship with God, like get on that right path, how could they do it and why should they do it? In like a condensed summary.
Okay. Okay. I want you to know that first of all, Jesus loves you like he does, like mad, right?
Yeah.
And you're not too far gone. That's the first thing you need to remember. And get a good church. Just get a good place and be grounded. Stay there. Read your Bible and pray. Talk to God like he's your friend. He's your father. He's your friend. Talk to him. He wants to listen to you. And don't overthink it. Don't try to be a strong babe, a strong guy in front of him. Just talk to him and let him know how you feel about what is going on in your life. Um, yeah, believe the gospel. Sorry, that's the real starting point. Gospel. Jesus died, he was buried, he rose again. And if you believe this, then you have eternal life. For God so loved the world. Like you don't because that whosoever believe in him should not perish, should have everlasting life. So if you believe the gospel, you're saved. Great. Note it. You're saved by grace through faith, not works. So
Yeah.
that nobody will boast. So now that you're saved, let's begin to live the life. And what will help you is a good community. So have the right people, be in a good church. And yeah,
Well said. Well said, Precious. Well said, Precious. There's no way we're in this conversation without asking about what you're currently doing and currently building, which is very powerful. The Chronos Company. That's huge. Kudos to you on that. You started these whole days whereby you were sharing insights on productivity, and I was taking my notes because I was like, "Who you might like?" It was just so valuable to speak, and thank you for doing that. So please, like, wrap us through why you started that and what's your hope for it, and anybody listening to it, how could they be a part of what you're doing?
thank you so much. I'm really glad that the 30-day TDS challenge was beneficial to you. So yeah, I mean the company is Maximizing Chronos, and at Maximizing Chronos, okay, you asked how it started. Basically, it's a God given vision, but I see that it built on something that he already gave like skill in,
Yeah.
right? Which was being able to manage my time. And so currently we have three primary outlets through which we help people, which are Chronos Company, which is our community, like you mentioned, Chronos Gym, which is a productivity masterclass targeted at students, and Chronos Therapy. Chronos Therapy is a one-on-one productivity
Coaching.
session.
Yeah.
So that is provided in two assets, one for schedule building and the other for project management and tracking. So you want us to just follow up with you and for accountability. So these three outlets, we just want to have help people to be able to maximize their potential, use their most valuable asset, which is time, and be the best versions of themselves. And we believe that it all starts with being able to use your most valuable asset, which is time. So, yeah.
Well said. Well said. Please, how can we be a part of this? Where are we to go to benefit from this amazing, amazing stuff you're doing?
All right. You can follow us on Instagram at Maxing Chronos Co.
The test to be written on the screen. Yeah.
MAXINChronosCO. Thank you. At Maxing Chronos Co.
Yeah.
Or on
Amazing.
LinkedIn at Maximizing Chronos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. We have a closing culture on this podcast, which is where I get to ask the guests what is one question they wish I had asked them during the conversation. And so that is the question to you.
Uh,
What is something you wish I had asked you on this conversation, or something you wish we talked about on this conversation? Nice one.
well, not really. Most people would have asked me like a lot of questions you already asked me. And so I feel like you've actually addressed a lot of things that I typically would have wanted to talk about. But yeah, I'll probably just want to say something goofy about myself, like maybe, um, yeah, like maybe all those random facts or something. Not like I have one on hand now, but like,
I want to do that. So fire away.
I think okay. All right, girl, fuck. I don't know how to dance, but I really like to try.
I'm sure we could tell that. You pointed 5 hours sleep. Anybody listening to it could use that. No, amazing. Amazing. But it's a work in progress. I mean, you've made progress over the years, and I'm sure that as time goes on, you continue to make progress. So amazing. Very precious. And it's really been inspiring
Thank you.
learning your journey. Just know that genuinely that we're inspired by what you're doing. And it's like Precious is like she's our person to go to. Like so it's like whenever we're down, like we should be motivated by that and we're really going to put in the work out there because your story has been nothing short but like exceptional. And you just keep setting the bar and the bar. And guys, please let us let us try to like follow that path because really that's the way we change the world really, right? Because at the end of the day what you're doing is like about like helping people get to know God, and that is really what we need in humanity right now. And I'm really so glad that you're doing this, and we can't wait to see what you do in the coming days and coming years. And please just keep being the star you are, and don't lose that smile because it's amazing, guys. You need to see it. Genuinely, thank you so much, Precious. It's been lovely,
Thank you so much, Divine. Thank you for having me here
amazing.
on Intentional Mind. Really, I'm so grateful. And thank you for your kind words as well.
Genuinely, take care, Precious.
Take care. Bye.